Welcome to Whispers of the Night. This is a place where stories move gently, where the day fades quietly and rest comes without effort. If you enjoy peaceful stories like this, consider subscribing to the channel. New sleep stories are shared regularly, created to help you unwind, relax, and drift into deep, comforting sleep. Now, settle in. Let your shoulders soften, your breathing slow, and allow tonight's story to begin. Tonight's story is called The Whispers from a Bygone Era. It is a quiet tale of return, of memories waiting patiently, and of a house that remembers every footstep, every breath, every heart that once called it home. As the story unfolds, allow your body to grow heavy. Feel the gentle support beneath you, the quiet stillness around you, and the safety of this moment. Imagine the soft glow of candlelight flickering gently in a quiet attic, dust drifting slowly through the air, time moving at its own unhurried pace. With each breath in, invite calm. With each breath out, release the day. There is nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to go. The past rests softly here, not demanding answers, only offering presence. If sleep begins to come, let it. If you remain awake, that's fine too. This story will continue gently, guiding you deeper into rest, into comfort, into quiet. Allow your thoughts to soften, your breathing to slow, and your awareness to drift naturally toward sleep. Shadows of the Forgotten Library. The door that breathes. The alley was easy to miss. It was not marked on any map, nor did it ask to be noticed. It rested quietly between two old stone buildings, narrow enough that the walls nearly touched. If one leaned far enough to either side, cobblestones lined the ground beneath her feet, worn smooth by years of footsteps that had long since faded into memory. At this hour, when day loosened its hold and evening arrived without announcement, the alley felt suspended between moments. The sky above was painted in slow shades of dusk, soft blue dissolving into lavender, then deepening toward night. Light lingered gently, as if reluctant to leave. The city beyond the alley had already begun to quiet. Sounds softened into distant, faraway voices, blurred into murmurs. The echo of a closing door, the faint rhythm of someone walking home several streets away. She stepped into the alley without quite remembering why. Her pace was unhurried, each footfall landing quietly on the stone. The sound of her steps felt muffled here, as though the walls absorbed noise instead of reflecting it. The air was cooler, calm against her skin, carrying the faint scent of stone and old wood. She breathed in slowly, then out again, matching the gentle rhythm of the space. Halfway down the alley, she noticed the door. It stood where the passage narrowed most, set neatly between the two buildings, as if it had always belonged there. Tall and made of dark, weathered wood, it rose higher than she expected, its surface marked with fine lines and shallow grooves shaped by time. The doorframe was stone, smooth at the edges, curved just enough to feel intentional rather than sharp dot. At first, it seemed still, but as she paused, something subtle caught her attention. The light on the door shifted, not abruptly, not dramatically, but with the kind of movement one only noticed when standing very still. The shadows along the grain of the wood deepened, then softened again, the faint glow seeping from the cracks. Around the frame brightened slightly, then dimmed. She waited, and then she felt it, a slow expansion, barely perceptible, followed by a gentle release. The door was breathing, not in any way that felt alarming or unnatural. It did not move visibly, did not creak or strain. Instead, the air around it seemed to pulse with quiet life, like a sleeping presence resting in its own calm rhythm. Inhale, exhale, slow, steady, patient. She realized she had stopped breathing. In time with it, when she noticed, she smiled faintly, not with surprise, but with recognition, as if she had found something that had been waiting without urgency. She let her shoulders relax and allowed her breath to follow the door's pace. In and out, the alley seemed to respond, growing even quieter, even softer. There was no handle on the door, no sign, no markings to explain its purpose. The wood was warm beneath the fading light, its surface matte rather than polished. It looked neither new nor decaying, simply present, held in a state beyond age. The glow around its edges remained steady now, like lamplight seen through a distant window. She stepped closer. With each step, the city behind her felt farther away, not physically distant, but gently muted, as though wrapped in layers of soft cloth. Even the idea of time loosened its grip. There was nowhere else she needed to be, no moment pressing against her back. Standing before the door, she raised her hand. She did not rush. Her fingers hovered just above the wood, suspended in the quiet. She could feel the door's breath clearly now, a warmth that rose and fell in a soothing pattern. It felt oddly familiar, like sitting beside someone who slept peacefully nearby. When her fingertips finally touched the surface, the door responded, not with sound, not with movement. Instead, the warmth deepened beneath her hand, spreading outward. In a slow wave, the wood seemed to soften, not physically, but in presence, inviting rather than resisting. Her palm rested there easily, as if it had always known the place. The breathing slowed, one long inhale, one long exhale, and then the door opened. It did not swing outward or pull inward. It parted silently, the seam at its center dissolving like mist, revealing a space beyond that was neither bright nor dark. The transition was seamless, gentle enough that she did not notice the moment it happened, only that suddenly there was an opening where there had been none. Warm air drifted out, carrying the faint scent of paper, dust, and something softer like linen warmed by lamplight. The glow within was subdued, amber-toned, steady. It did not spill aggressively into the alley, but waited, as if respecting the quiet. She stepped forward as she crossed the threshold. The sounds of the city faded completely, not cut off, but released, like a breath slowly let go. The alley behind her remained, but it felt distant now, unimportant. The door closed without a sound once she had passed through, sealing the hush gently behind her. Inside, the air felt still and alive. At the same time, the space was larger than expected, but not overwhelming. Light moved softly across unseen surfaces, suggesting shelves and walls that curved rather than stood straight. The floor beneath her feet was smooth and warm, responding faintly to her steps, as if acknowledging her presence. She paused just inside, allowing her senses to adjust. Her breathing slowed naturally, guided by the calm of the space. Each inhale felt fuller, each exhale longer. The quiet here was not empty. It was layered, textured, with the suggestion of stories resting, waiting without urgency behind her. The door continued its slow rhythm. It no longer felt like an entrance, but like a guardian, keeping the outside gently at bay while allowing rest to settle in. She stood for a while, doing nothing at all. There was no pressure to move forward, no voice calling her name, no instruction to follow. The space trusted her to arrive in her own time. That trust, unspoken and complete, wrapped around her like a soft shawl. Eventually, she took another step, then another. Her movements were unhurried, almost drifting. Each step carried her deeper into the quiet, away from the edges of thought. The glow ahead shifted subtly, revealing hints of shelves rising in gentle curves, of passages that spiraled rather than branched. But none of that mattered yet. For now, there was only the memory of the door behind her, the way it breathed, the way it opened without sound, the way it had not asked her to explain herself before letting her pass as she moved forward. The rhythm of that breathing stayed with her slow footsteps, distant hush, gentle breaths. The library had accepted her, and somewhere behind her, the door rested again, breathing steadily, waiting patiently, ready to welcome the next quiet soul who wandered close enough to listen. Shelves of whispering time. She did not know how long she stood just inside the library. Time felt different, here not absent, but softened, as though its edges had been rounded smooth. There was no urgency urging her forward, no moment tugging at her sleeve. When she finally began to move again, it was not because she decided to, but because the space itself seemed to breathe her gently onward. The floor beneath her feet curved almost imperceptibly, guiding her steps in a slow, spiraling path. As her eyes adjusted to the warm dimness, the library revealed itself more fully. Shelves, endless shelves. They rose from the floor and arched overhead in wide, graceful curves, forming a spiral that wound upward and outward, disappearing into shadow. There were no sharp corners, no rigid lines. Everything flowed wood-bending softly, shelves bowing like branches, heavy with leaves. The architecture felt intentional, caring, as though designed to cradle rather than contain. The books filled every shelf, thousands of them. Their spines were worn and varied muted browns, dusky blues, faded greens, soft creams touched by age. Some were thick and heavy, others slim and light, but none seemed new. Each carried the quiet dignity of having been held before, read before, loved or forgotten in equal measure. A faint glow lingered among them, Not bright, not distracting, just enough to suggest presence. It shimmered like fireflies resting between pages, like memory softened by distance. The glow pulsed slowly, in no hurry, rising and falling in gentle waves. She took a step forward, then another. Her footsteps echoed faintly, but the sound dissolved almost as soon as it formed, absorbed by the shelves and the thick, warm air. With each movement, the library seemed to listen not attentively, not closely, but kindly. As she passed the first row of shelves, she noticed something else. Sound, or rather, the suggestion of it. A whisper, so soft, it barely registered as noise. It did not come from one book, or even one shelf, but from the space itself, collective murmur, layered and distant. It rose and fell like a tide heard from far away. She paused, holding still. The whisper did not stop. It did not grow louder. Either it simply continued, steady and low, like breath carried through pages. When she leaned closer to one of the shelves, she realized the sound came from the books themselves. Not words spoken clearly, not sentences, just fragments, pieces of thought, half-remembered emotions, traces of stories that no longer needed to be complete. A laugh, softened by time, a promise, unfinished, the image of rain against glass. None of it demanded attention. Nothing reached for her. The whispers were content to exist without being understood. She exhaled, slowly, and without meaning to. Her shoulders dropped. The library was not asking her to read. It was inviting her to listen. She continued walking, her pace unhurried, each step aligning naturally with the rhythm of the space. The spiral shelves guided her gently. There was no destination to reach, only movement, soft and continuous. As she passed, a book near her hand glowed slightly brighter. She did not touch it. The glow dimmed again. Content, another book, farther up the shelf, whispered, a single word, not in any language she recognized, but in a feeling she did, the sense of being held, the relief of setting something down after carrying it too long. Her breathing deepened. The whispers responded not by changing, but by continuing, steady and reassuring. They did not grow louder when she listened, nor fade when she looked away. They existed independent of her attention, which made them feel safe. Here, nothing needed to be completed, nothing needed to be solved. She walked on. The spiral widened slightly, opening into a broader space where shelves curved in a wide ring. Around her, the ceiling arched high above, lost in shadow, while the glow from the books traced soft patterns along the floor. She noticed how the dust moved. Tiny motes drifted lazily through the air, catching the faint light as they passed. Their movement was slow, almost synchronized with her breathing. They did not fall quickly, rounded like fabric brushing against skin. It echoed once, twice, then faded completely. No one was there, or perhaps someone had been there long ago, leaving the sound behind like a memory that hadn't yet decided to disappear. She smiled faintly. The whispers continued, fragments of lullabies, names spoken once, then never again. The feeling of coming home late at night. The books here seemed older somehow, their spines deeply creased, their edges softened by countless hands. As she walked by, the whispers shifted not louder, but closer. Not words, reassurance. A sense of having been through much and being allowed to rest now. Her steps slowed further. She placed her hand lightly against one of the shelves, fingertips brushing the wood. It was warm, smooth, worn in places where others had rested their hands before. The whispers near her touch did not stop. They did not react. They simply continued, accepting her presence without acknowledgement. She left her hand there for a moment, grounding herself in the texture, the quiet solidity of the space. Then she moved on. The spiral tightened again, drawing her inward. The shelves seemed to lean closer, not crowding, but enclosing her gently, like arms drawn around someone drifting toward sleep. The whispers grew more diffuse here, blending together into a soft hum. Individual fragments became harder to distinguish, dissolving into a single, soothing presence. Her thoughts began to slow, not because she tried to quiet them, but because there was no place for them to rush. The library held time loosely, letting it stretch and drift. Each step felt the same as the last, and the next promised nothing new, only more calm. The glow of the books dimmed slightly, responding to nothing in particular. It was as if the library itself were settling, preparing for rest. The air felt heavier, warmer, but not oppressive, like a blanket drawn gently higher. She passed another open space, where a circular arrangement of shelves surrounded a low platform. Cushions rested there, their shapes barely visible in the dimness. She did not stop yet. She sensed that there would be time for that later. For now, the walk itself was enough. The whispers softened further, becoming less distinct, more rhythmic. They no longer felt like fragments of stories, but like echoes, residual warmth, left behind after something had been fully felt and released. She realized then that the books were not whispering their beginnings. They were whispering their endings, not endings of loss or finality, but endings of effort. The quiet after a story no longer needs to be told. The moment when meaning settles into something simple and gentle. Her breath slowed too, matched the library's pace, each inhale longer than the last, each exhale unburdened. The spiral gradually widened once more, guiding her toward a softer glow ahead. She could sense the space opening, offering rest without instruction. Behind her, the whispers continued. Ahead of her, silence waited, and between the two, she walked and hurried, safe, held within the endless shelves of whispering time. The librarian of shadows. The whispers gradually faded behind her, not all at once, and not completely, just enough that they softened into the background, becoming part of the air rather than something distinct. As she continued walking, the spiral shelves opened into a quieter space, one that felt smaller and more intimate, as though the library had drawn her into a private corner meant only for rest. The floor beneath her feet changed subtly, where it had once echoed faintly, now absorbed sound almost entirely. Her steps landed without disturbance, as if the wood itself had learned how to listen without responding. The light here was warmer, slower, gathering in gentle pools, instead of drifting freely. At the center of the space stood a reading desk. It was simple, made of dark, polished wood, smooth and worn along its edges. Its surface bore the faint marks of time, not scratches, but soft impressions where hands had rested. Books had been placed, sleeves had brushed past, again and again. The desk felt familiar without being recognizable, like something remembered from a dream. Above it floated a lamp. It hung in the air without chain or cord, steady and calm, emitting a warm amber glow that pulsed almost imperceptibly. The light did not flicker, it breathed. Each rise and fall was slow, unhurried, creating a rhythm that settled gently into the space. She stopped a few steps away. The lamp's glow widened slightly, as if acknowledging her presence, though it made no sound and offered no signal. The shadows around the desk softened, stretching lazily across the floor. Everything here moved slowly, so slowly that movement felt optional. She breathed in. The air carried the scent of old paper, warm wood, and something else, something quiet and comforting, like fabric warmed by lamplight. It reminded her of evenings spent indoors while the world rested outside. She exhaled. The desk waited as she stepped closer. She noticed that the space behind the desk was darker than the rest of the room. Not empty, just deep. A shadow gathered there, not sharply defined, but present all the same. At first, it did not move. She did not startle. There was no fear in the air, no tension. The shadow felt natural, like the absence of light rather than something added. It belonged to the room as much as the desk and lamp did. She stood still, allowing herself to adjust. The shadow shifted slightly, not forward, not backward, just enough to suggest awareness. And then she understood. The librarian had arrived. It did not step into the light. It did not emerge fully. It remained where it was, behind the desk, within the softened darkness. Its shape suggested rather than defined. Tall, gentle, draped in something like the outline of robes, though no fabric was truly visible. There was no face, no eyes, and yet she felt seen, not examined, not measured, simply noticed, in the way one notices a candle already burning quietly in a room. The librarian did not speak. There was no need. Its presence filled the space with reassurance, spreading outward like warmth from a hearth. The amber lamp seemed to respond, its glow deepening slightly, wrapping the desk and floor in soft light. She felt something ease inside her chest. She took another step forward, then stopped again, sensing that she was exactly where she needed to be. The librarian's movement was minimal, a slight inclination of its form, a shift of shadow along the edge of the desk, a slow, deliberate gesture, one hand, perhaps, lifting just enough to indicate the surface before her. She understood. She approached the desk. Her movements were unhurried, almost drifting. As she reached the edge, she rested her fingertips lightly against the wood. It was warm beneath her touch, grounding and solid. Cloth brushed against the surface as her sleeve followed her hand. The sound was soft, barely. There it faded quickly into the quiet. The librarian remained still, its presence steady and patient. It did not hurry her. It did not guide her forward. It simply remained, a calm constant in the background. The lamp continued its gentle rhythm. She noticed then that her breathing had matched it, without effort. On the desk lay a book. It had not been there before, or perhaps it had, and she was only now ready to see it. The book was neither large nor small, its cover plain, its edges softly worn. No title marked its surface. It did not glow like the others she had passed, but it held warmth, as if it had been waiting. She did not reach for it yet. She looked instead toward the librarian. The shadow inclined again, just slightly, not urging, not instructing, simply present. She felt no pressure to open the book, no expectation to read. The comfort here came from knowing that she could, if she wished in, that she did not have to. She let her hand rest on the desk a little longer. Her shoulders loosened. The quiet deepened. The librarian's presence wrapped around the space like a blanket, heavy enough to comfort, light enough to breathe through. It felt protective, not watchful, companionable, not authoritative. This was not a keeper of rules. This was a keeper of rest. The lamp's glow softened further, and the shadows stretched longer, slower. Time thinned here, spreading itself gently across the room. The librarian moved. Again, this time the motion was more visible, though still subtle. The shadow's hand, it was a hand, closed the book on the desk with a slow, careful motion. There was a sound, not a sharp one, just the quiet meeting of paper and paper. The book rested, the gesture felt complete. She did not feel disappointment. She felt relief. The message was clear. Even without words, nothing needed to be opened right now. Nothing needed to be read. The story could wait, or perhaps it had already been told. She shifted her weight slightly, and the fabric of her clothing brushed softly against the desk once more. The sound echoed gently, then vanished. The librarian did not move in response. It remained steady, a quiet anchor in the dimness. She became aware of how safe she felt, not the safety of locks and barriers, but the safety of being allowed to rest without explanation, of being in a place that did not require effort or alertness. The lamp's glow pulsed once, then settled. The librarian's shadow softened further, blending more fully with the surrounding darkness. It did not leave. It simply became part of the room again, indistinguishable from the space that held it. She knew, without thinking, that it would remain, always nearby, always present, guiding without leading, watching without watching. She stepped back from the desk, slowly, her movements fluid and quiet. The librarian did not follow. It did not need to. The companionship lingered as she turned. The path ahead felt clear, not because it was visible, but because it did not need to be chosen. The library would continue to guide her, gently, patiently, without demand, behind her. The amber lamp floated on, breathing softly. The desk rested. The shadow watched over the quiet, and she moved forward, carrying with her the steady reassurance of having been accompanied without words, without effort, without needing to be anything more than present. Stories that let go. The circular room welcomed her slowly, as if it had been waiting all along for someone to arrive. The spiral shelves had given way to a wider space, the walls curving gently like soft arms cradling the center. Each curve was smooth, unhurried, without sharp edges to catch thought or movement. She stepped forward, her feet meeting the warm floor with the quiet certainty of a familiar path. Though she had never been here before, cushions lay scattered across the floor. They were not placed with meticulous care, but with a kind of natural randomness, forming gentle islands of soft fabric. Cream, muted brown, dusty gray, all colors, softened by the room's diffused light. Each one invited her to pause. The air smelled faintly of old paper, polished wood, and something softer, still warmth, like sunlight caught in a blanket, lingering but never harsh. She lowered herself onto one of the cushions near the center, the fabric yielding to her weight in a quiet, unassuming welcome. Her shoulders eased downward, her jaw unclenched. Her breath lengthened without conscious effort. The space seemed to adjust around her, expanding ever so slightly, providing a subtle, protective embrace. At the center rested a book. It was neither large nor small, its cover pale and smooth, unmarked, unassuming. It lay there quietly, inviting without command. She reached for it, fingertips brushing the soft fabric first, then the warm, smooth cover. The book felt lighter than expected. It carried a gentle weight, but only the kind that suggested patience rather than expectation. She opened it. The pages moved with a faint, distant sound, barely more than a sigh. No rustling that drew attention, no crisp noise to jolt her awareness, only the soft unfolding of paper and possibility. Words appeared on the page, simple and gentle. They were arranged calmly, each sentence waiting for her eyes, yet never demanding they move quickly. She read slowly, deliberately, allowing the text to settle against her awareness. The first sentence faded before she had even fully absorbed it. It dissolved softly, its letters brightening, then vanishing, leaving the page blank once more. She did not startle. She did not even react consciously. Instead, she felt a faint sense of relief, a quiet letting go, as if the sentence had taken a small weight with it when it disappeared. The second sentence appeared. She read it. It faded. Each word, each thought softened and released itself, slipping away without requiring acknowledgement or effort. The page returned to emptiness. She felt lighter with each fading line. Her breath followed a steady rhythm, slow and full, in and out. Each inhale longer than before. Each exhale releasing tension she had not realized she carried. The room seemed to breathe with her. Dust motes drifted lazily in wide, unhurried arcs, catching the soft light and moving in harmony with her chest rising and falling. The space around her grew almost liquid in stillness, a gentle cocoon in which nothing was required, nothing demanded. The library no longer felt like shelves and books. It felt like a heartbeat, slow, steady, constant. She read another sentence. It dissolved. Another sentence. Dissolved again. She let her eyes linger on each fading word, feeling the release deepen. Each line that disappeared left her chest a little lighter, her shoulders a little lower, her mind a little softer. The book was patient, accommodating her pace, letting her absorb without pressure. No thought was necessary here. No reflection. No judgment. The sentences faded, and so did the urge to hold on. It was as if each word carried a fragment of worry, and when it vanished, the fragment vanished with it. There was no loss. Only space. Only quiet. Only calm. She leaned back slightly against the cushion. The fabric molded to her body, softening the contours of her posture. Her fingers rested lightly on the edge of the book, then relaxed entirely, letting it rest beside her on the cushion. Her eyes followed the drifting motes in the air, watching them circle slowly, like tiny lanterns floating without urgency. Their movement mirrored her own breath, a visual echo of her inner rhythm. She realized that she did not have to read. She could close her eyes and let the words come and fade in her imagination. Each sentence was like a leaf carried along a gentle stream, visible, fleeting, harmless. She exhaled and felt tension dissolve. The library did not rush her. It did not call her forward. It simply existed around her, steady and patient, as if it had been holding this space for a long time and would continue to hold it long after she left. Her hands rested softly in her lap. She closed her eyes briefly, allowing the faint hum of the space, the soft whisper of air across shelves, the subtle movement of dust, the gentle warmth of light to fill her senses. Even the sensation of her body pressing into the cushion felt like a presence, a quiet support beneath her. Each small contact grounded her further, deepening the sense of release. She opened the book again. A sentence appeared. She read it, and it faded. Another sentence appeared, dissolved. Her breathing remained slow and full, her chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. The sentences fading had become part of the room's heartbeat, part of her own, a combined pulse of calm. Time became unimportant. She did not notice the minutes nor the hours. The spiraling shelves outside the circular space no longer mattered. The library's world had contracted softly around her. The cushion held her. The book released her. The drifting light and motes embraced her. She felt her shoulders loosen further. Her back relaxed completely. Even her jaw, her eyes, her hands, they all yielded to the gentle insistence of calm. She let herself settle entirely, as if each sentence that faded carried away not just worries, but the weight of consciousness pressing too hard. The small demands she hadn't recognized, she was still carrying. One sentence faded, and she smiled faintly. Not a smile of amusement, but a smile of relief. The sentence had done its work. It had reminded her how to let go, how to rest, how to unburden without effort. Another line faded, and she felt the room close around her just slightly more, protective, encouraging. The air itself seemed warmer here. The gentle pulse of the space synced with her heartbeat. She shifted slightly on the cushion, adjusting her position without urgency. The book lay open, blank again. She did not reach for it. She did not need to. The room was enough. The drift of the motes, the soft shadows, the dim, embracing light, it was enough. She inhaled deeply, and the exhale stretched long and full, carrying away the tiniest remaining edges of worry she had brought with her. Her eyes closed again. The space held her weight, her breath, her quiet. In this moment, she understood that the library was more than a place. It was a companion, a presence that did not demand anything from her, that allowed her to exist fully, without needing to be anything but herself. A sentence appeared faintly in her mind, unspoken, unsaid. It faded, another, and it faded too. Each thought, each worry, each small insistence she had carried, released like the sentences in the book. Nothing remained, only calm, only presence, only the quiet pulse of the library, the steady rhythm of her breath, and the drifting motes catching faint light, rising and dissolving in the air above her, and the shadows beneath her, the warmth in the cushion, the soft curve of the walls, they all synchronized, forming a gentle cradle. Nothing required effort, nothing asked to be noticed. The sentences faded, the book rested, The room existed, and she existed within it. Minutes passed, or perhaps hours. There was no distinction. The outside world had dissolved into memory, leaving only this circular sanctuary, this spiral of stillness and release, the sentences fading, the motes drifting, her breath's rhythm, they all merged into one seamless, continuous lullaby of calm. She opened her eyes slightly. The book lay blank. The cushion held her. The air moved gently. She did not need to do anything. She did not need to remember. The library had taught her, silently, that sometimes presence is enough, that sometimes release is enough, that sometimes reading a story is not about the story at all. It is about allowing each moment, each sentence, each breath to fade, leaving only space for calm. She closed her eyes fully, letting herself melt into the cushion, letting the room cradle her body, letting the drifting dust motes, the soft warmth, the fading sentences carry her into quietness she had not known she could feel so fully. Her breathing was steady, slow, heart-like, in and out. The room and her heartbeat synchronized into a single rhythm of rest. The book lay open and blank beside her. She did not touch it. She did not need to. Words were not necessary anymore. Presence.com and the gentle fading of everything into space were sufficient. She felt light, unbound, unburdened. She felt safe. She felt exactly where she needed to be. The library's circular walls, the cushions, the floating light, the drifting dust motes all existed in perfect, steady harmony. Nothing pressed, nothing intruded, nothing pulled. The book's sentences had faded, and with them had gone worry, tension, and the need to carry anything forward. She exhaled one final, long breath. The exhale stretched through her body, through the air, through the room itself. The motes drifted slower, the light softened further, the shadows deepened gently. Each heartbeat, each inhale, each exhale carried her further into rest. The book lay blank. The room was silent. She was still, she was calm. And in that stillness, she let go entirely. The library at rest. The circular room had gradually settled into quiet. The drifting dust motes slowed their arcs through the warm, amber glow, moving almost imperceptibly, suspended in the softened air. The shelves around her, once spiraling with faint luminescence, began to sink gently into shadow, their edges blurring into the deeper quiet of the library. Each shelf seemed to exhale slowly and evenly, letting go of the light it had carried, allowing the world to dim without resistance. She remained on the cushion where she had settled. Her body had begun to melt into the soft fabric. The curve of her back supported. Her shoulders eased fully. The blank book lay beside her, still and quiet, its pages emptied by the slow magic of the library. No sentence required attention. No story demanded recall. The room had offered what it needed to offer, and now it allowed stillness to settle above. The floating amber lamps pulsed gently, slower now than before, their glow deepening to a soft honey tone. The light no longer reached every corner, but it was enough, warm and steady, to mark shapes and shadows without detail. The darkness that emerged between shelves was not frightening, it was comfortable, protective, a gentle curtain that softened the edges of space and the edges of thought. A low hum began to rise, not loud, not intrusive, but subtle, a vibration in the air itself. It was neither musical nor mechanical. It felt as though the library itself had a pulse, a quiet resonance that matched the slowing rhythm of her breath. In exhale, inhale, exhale, it was the library breathing, inviting her to breathe along with it, to let go entirely, to release the remnants of tension she had carried unknowingly. Somewhere ahead, the librarian moved, or perhaps it had always been there, simply waiting for this precise moment. The shadow shifted slowly, deliberate, and without sound. Its form flowed effortlessly with the dim light, a dark shape among darker shadows, neither rigid nor hurried. Its hands or shapes that might have been hands came together at the desk, closing the final book with soft deliberation. The sound of pages meeting was gentle, almost imperceptible, but it carried the weight of conclusion. The closing of the book seemed to ripple outward, not visibly, not sharply, but in the subtlest of shifts. The shelves leaned slightly closer, the shadows deepened in response, and the soft amber light slowed its pulse further. The library exhaled again, long and patient, as if preparing itself for rest. Time, here, became less pressing, more like a soft tide, moving slowly around her without insistence, without direction. She inhaled, and her chest rose gently, following the library's quiet rhythm. She exhaled, allowing the small currents of warmth and shadow to wash over her. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers relaxed, palms facing softly toward the cushion. She felt the slow surrender of every muscle, every joint. Her mind no longer chased fragments of thought or worry. The room asked nothing of her. It simply existed, and so she simply existed within it. The hum of the library persisted, steady, a long, sustained presence. The dust motes drifted with almost imperceptible movement, floating upward and downward, circling in slow arcs, catching the amber light in soft flashes that reminded her of distant stars. The air itself felt denser, not heavy, but tangible, a gentle embrace of warm stillness. Every inhalation she took seemed to draw the quiet into her lungs. Every exhale sent some small tension back into the rhythm of the library, which carried it away like a stream absorbing leaves in a calm current. The librarian remained at the desk, quiet, still, yet undeniably present. Its shadowy form did not follow her eyes. It did not ask for notice. Its closeness was comforting, steady, like a heartbeat beside her own. She did not need to speak, nor move, nor respond. Its presence alone, with the final book closed, created a perfect equilibrium, a space fully ready for rest, a world entirely aligned with stillness. She adjusted slightly on the cushion, feeling the subtle give of fabric beneath her body, and allowed herself to melt further into the support it offered. Her hands rested lightly on her knees. She exhaled long, slow, full, feeling the small release as each inhale and exhale merged with the hum around her. The library's pulse and her pulse were no longer separate. They moved together in a rhythm that required nothing but presence, nothing but attention to calm. The shelves around her had almost disappeared into darkness. Not fully, but enough that shapes were suggestion rather than detail. The spirals and curves seemed to stretch beyond sight, leaving only vague impressions of space, soft edges, and rounded shadows. The room, which had been luminous and filled with whispering motes moments ago, had now simplified itself into a sanctuary of minimal perception, warmth, soft light, gentle sound, and quiet. Even the dust motes seemed slower, heavier with quiet. Their arcs traced lazy circles, floating with no intention other than the natural movement of air and light. Watching them became hypnotic. She could follow one in her gaze, and it would drift and circle, and her eyes could follow it in silence, without fatigue, without distraction. She could watch many at once, their collective arcs forming patterns she did not need to name or understand, yet somehow felt safe and grounding. Her breathing remained steady, her heartbeat slow, synchronized with the ambient pulse. She felt a subtle heaviness in her eyelids. She did not resist it. She allowed them to drift downward, softly, gently, as if lowering curtains on the last vestiges of wakefulness. The library continued to hum. The lamp pulsed faintly. Shadows stretched, softened, expanded, and contracted, and she lay within it, fully, completely, willingly. She became aware of the finality of closure. The last book, now shut, represented not an end imposed, but an invitation, the invitation to stop trying, to stop holding, to stop acting. Nothing else was required. No other books, no other words, no movement. The library, in its collective quiet, extended a hand without gesture, a comfort without form. She accepted it without thought, letting herself dissolve softly into the flow of ambient rest. Long pauses became a rhythm in themselves, not empty, but present, not urgent, but deliberate. The library seemed to breathe these pauses, stretching each moment so that each inhale and exhale became a mini eternity. Each heartbeat, a gentle drum echoing softly through space. She exhaled, felt the air around her pulse, and surrendered further. The light softened again. Its amber glow dimmed to the faintest touch against the shadows. A candle at dusk. Shapes of shelves and cushions remained only in suggestion. The librarian's shadow seemed more diffuse now, merging into the surrounding quiet. No longer a distinct shape, yet still unmistakably present. Presence without intrusion. Care without demand. Safety without instruction. She inhaled, exhaled, slowly, fully, her breath tracing the invisible curves of the room. The hum persisted, low and steady, the pulse of something older than her awareness. A warmth rose from the floor through the cushion, spreading along her spine, through her chest, into her shoulders. Every muscle loosened, every tension unwound, every fragment of thought she had carried into the library melted into the resonance of the space. The final book remained closed. She did not need to open it. The library no longer required participation. Its shelves sank fully into shadows now, edges indistinct, as though the entire space had exhaled in unison. The floating lamps dimmed further, pulsing once or twice in acknowledgement, then slowing to near imperceptibility. Only the warm, ambient glow remained. The library itself was falling asleep, and she was falling asleep with it. Her fingers, resting gently on her knees, twitched slightly as if to check the world, then relaxed completely. Her eyelids were heavy. Her chest rose and fell in a rhythm that matched the subtle hum of the air. Every exhale released more than breath. It released tension, worry, anticipation, memory. Everything extraneous melted into the pulse of the library. The librarian's shadow became indistinct now, almost blending into the circular room. Its presence remained steady, steady enough to reassure, to guide. She did not need to see it clearly. Its existence was felt, not observed. It was like a soft hand on her shoulder, a warm breath in the quiet, a silent lullaby that demanded nothing from her. She shifted slightly on the cushion, allowed herself to sink more fully into the support beneath her. The final book, the empty shelves, the softened light, the drifting dust motes, and the ambient hummel merged into a single sense of calm. She did not move. She did not think. She did not need to. She existed as fully as she ever had, fully surrendered, fully held, fully supported. Time ceased to press. She could no longer distinguish one moment from the next, nor care to. Inhalation and exhalation became continuous, a steady loop without beginning or end. The library had taught her, through its soft pulsing, its slow hum, its dimming lights, and sinking shadows, how to release entirely, how to rest entirely, how to be entirely without demand. The lamps pulsed once, slower than before. Shadows lengthened and softened. The final book rested. The air was warm and steady. The library exhaled. She exhaled. The rhythms became one, and in that gentle convergence, she let herself drift, fully supported, fully surrendered, fully at rest. The library had rested, and now she rested within it, the space itself carrying her into calm, beyond thought, beyond worry, beyond wakefulness. Beyond the final page, the library had fallen into complete quiet. The amber lamps pulsed only faintly, like embers glowing in a hearth long after the fire had dwindled. Shadows stretched across shelves, across walls, across the curved floors, soft and slow, moving almost imperceptibly. Everything was still, yet in that stillness there was life, a subtle rhythm beneath the calm. The space exhaled, the air breathed. Time itself seemed to pause, stretching gently like a slow, warm sigh. She moved toward the corner near the window. The floor beneath her steps absorbed sound completely. Her movement was effortless, unhurried, floating across the worn floor without leaving echo or trace. Each step was gentle, deliberate. The cushions nearby shifted softly as she passed them, as though acknowledging her presence without disturbing her. The library was awake only in its quiet attentiveness, a gentle observer of her slow progress. The window was small, framed with simple wood, but beyond it lay the sky filled with starlight. Tiny points of silver drifted across the darkness, steady, patient, calm. They were not overwhelming. They did not demand attention. They simply existed, like the room itself, like the air itself, like the rhythm of her own heartbeat. Each star seemed aware of her presence, acknowledging it with the faintest shimmer, as if offering quiet guidance toward rest. She knelt beside the cushion she had chosen, brushing it lightly with her fingers. Its soft fabric conformed easily beneath her touch. She lowered herself gently, folding her legs beneath her, then lay down fully. The cushion embraced her, lifting slightly beneath her shoulders, supporting her head with quiet, unassuming comfort. She exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of her body dissolve into the soft support beneath her. The final book, now closed, rested nearby. Its presence was quiet. Its story, already told in whispers and fading words, had no remaining hold over her. She felt no need to open it again. The words had already guided her, line by line, toward release, toward surrender. She reached for it once, lightly, then let it rest beside her, its weight gentle, its roll complete. The starlight through the window cast subtle patterns across her body. They shifted slowly as the stars moved across the sky, soft silver brushing her face and shoulders, gentle highlights catching the curve of her hands, the line of her hair, the contours of her calm form. It was serene, unhurried, deliberate, like the world itself bending toward rest. Her eyes closed. She let the faint silver light wash over her closed eyelids, imagining it pooling across her chest, her arms, her legs. She felt the warmth of the cushion beneath her, the slow rhythm of her breathing, the subtle pulse of the library around her. In and out, inhale, exhale, slow, steady, continuous. Each breath became a small wave, a gentle tide in which she floated effortlessly, surrendering entirely to quiet. The library around her exhaled in turn. The shelves settled fully into shadow. The cushions softened further, as if memory of her presence had pressed them gently into readiness. The amber lamps dimmed further, their glow almost imperceptible, just enough to mark the contours of space. The dust motes, which had drifted lazily throughout the room, now seemed suspended, floating in perfect stillness, catching the faintest glimmer of starlight and lamp glow, then fading again into soft shadow. The librarian's shadow was near, not standing over her, not moving toward her, merely present in the room, a quiet witness, a calm presence, indistinct yet unmistakable. Its form had merged with the dimmed shadows, neither looming nor distant, simply existing as part of the stillness, an assurance that she was safe, entirely and completely, with nothing required of her. She exhaled again. Her chest rose and fell in a slow, natural rhythm. Her eyelids fluttered briefly, then rested fully. The library's subtle hum, the faint pulsing of lamps, the drifting silver points of starlight, the gentle contours of cushions and shadow, all of it combined to create a cocoon of calm. She no longer thought of time. She no longer thought of the outside world. She no longer thought of story, book, or words. Only presence remained. The exhale stretched long and soft. Her breath moved naturally, unforced, like wind brushing leaves in a distant forest. The inhale followed effortlessly, filling her lungs just enough, releasing just enough. The rhythm settled deeper, merging with the pulse of the space. She could feel the faint resonance beneath her body, the gentle vibration of wood, fabric, air. Every small detail contributed to a sense of grounding, a sense of being entirely held. She let her hands rest by her sides, palms up, soft, relaxed. She felt the cushion beneath her arms, the warmth beneath her back, the quiet hum beneath her chest. She exhaled slowly, feeling the accumulated tension in her shoulders, her spine, her jaw, her fingers dissolve. She did not need to hold anything. She did not need to resist anything. She did not need to do anything at all. The starlight shifted subtly, brushing across her hair in tiny waves of silver. The shadows softened further, rounding the edges of the room. The cushions, the floor, the walls, the shelves, the soft, floating hum, the drifting dust motes, they all synchronized into a single, cohesive rhythm. There was no distinction between space and presence, between her body and the environment, between thought and rest. Everything existed together, slow, calm, seamless. A faint pulse traveled through the room. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it reached her chest, her limbs, her fingers. She exhaled into it. She inhaled with it. The rhythm deepened. The library, which had held her, guided her, allowed her presence, now carried her further into calm, into quiet, into surrender. She drifted, slowly, floating between awareness and deep rest. The starlight brushed against her closed eyelids like a gentle hand. The shadows moved ever so slightly, as if to accommodate her presence, to mold themselves around her body and her quiet mind. The librarian's shadow remained near, indistinct, an assurance without demand, a guardian of stillness rather than instruction. The final book rested quietly beside her. Its pages were blank. Its story had done its work. It had guided her through curiosity, through wonder, through release. Now it lay silent, holding no obligation, leaving her free to simply rest. She exhaled, inhaled, exhaled again, each breath a tide, carrying her further from wakefulness, further into the quiet embrace of the room. Her body melted fully into the cushion. Her shoulders, arms, legs, back, head, they were all heavy, supported, softened. Each exhale dissolved thought. Each inhale replenished calm. Time no longer mattered. Minutes, hours, or moments, they were all the same in this room. There was no urgency, no expectation, no requirement, only the pulse of the library, the faint warmth of cushions, the drifting motes, the soft glow of starlight and amber light, all of it synchronized to her presence, a cradle of pure calm. The librarian's shadow shifted, barely perceptibly, confirming that it remained present but not imposing. Its presence reassured, guided, held, but did not intrude. She felt safe, completely, entirely. Her body, her mind, her awareness, everything was carried, fully supported, fully embraced. The light dimmed further, blending with the darkened shelves, rounding edges, softening space. The dust motes floated, barely moving, nearly invisible, yet shimmering faintly with every pulse of the air. The library exhaled long and steady, a low, vibrating hum that resonated gently through the floor, the walls, the ceiling, and her body. Her eyelids rested fully closed now. The gentle exhalation from her chest matched the slow breathing of the room. The inhale followed naturally, without effort. She drifted deeper, body sinking into the cushion, thoughts melting into quiet, awareness stretching thin into nothingness. The final pulse of the lamp dimmed almost entirely. The shadows expanded softly across the floor, walls, ceiling. The starlight shimmered faintly, brushing her hair, her face, her hands, dissolving softly into darkness. The library had reached its own rest, and she rested within it, Every small sound, her exhale, the faint hum, the shifting motes became part of a seamless, endless rhythm. She was carried by it, fully. No resistance remained. No effort remained. No thought remained. Only calm. Only slow, steady breath. Only the gentle dissolution of everything external into the serenity of the space. Her heartbeat and the pulse of the library synchronized completely. One slow, continuous, wave upon wave of warmth, quiet presence. She felt nothing outside of this rhythm, nothing separate, nothing demanding. She exhaled, inhaled, exhaled again, longer, deeper. The space held her fully, as though it had always been prepared to carry her into this moment. Her body melted entirely. Her mind thinned into soft, slow nothingness. The starlight shifted faintly one last time, brushing silver against her closed eyelids, and merged seamlessly with the amber glow, now softened to imperceptible warmth. Shadows and light became one. Space and presence became one. Breathing and pulse became one. The library, finally, had slept, and she fully carried, fully supported, fully surrendered, followed without effort, without thought, without hesitation, into rest, into calm, into the deep, quiet nothingness that lay beyond the final page. Her exhale stretched long, a soft thread, followed by the quiet return of inhale. The rhythm continued. She was weightless, peaceful, infinite within the circle of light, shadow, cushions, and drifting motes, and in that complete, gentle convergence, she disappeared into rest, fully embraced by the library, fully released, fully asleep. Thank you for listening. May your mind feel light. May your rest be deep. Let the night hold you gently. There is nothing more to do. Good night.